And welcome to Lunch with Langdell. I'm Ted Langdell, and we are here in a building that's been in Marysville since probably the 1960s or something like that. And we're here with Bob Harlan. Bob is the executive director of the Yuba-Sutter-Colusa United Way. Back when we first became familiar with the United Way, it was the Yuba-Sutter-Colusa United Way. And it's or Yuba-Sutter United Way, and it added Colusa when, Bob?
Oh, about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I guess, right now. And the idea was to include them as we can into some of the things we're doing, which we've done particularly in assisting with food for those in need in the Colusa County area.
So that's been a successful change?
Yeah, we would like to get more involved with other nonprofit organizations, and that's something that we will be working on and have worked on in the past.
And so this is an opportunity to grow the ability of the organization to do things and create new things for it to do?
Yeah, and basically each county is in the footprint of a United Way in California. We have about 30 different United Ways, and each of them have a footprint that cover all but I think about 2 of our 58 counties.
How long has United Way been around as an organization?
Oh my gosh. We've been around since 1968. I forget exactly when United Way started, but it's really gained the biggest traction in the United States, with about 1,000 independent affiliates in the United States as of right now. So it's extremely successful, covering the vast majority of the country, and of course quite a bit of the world as well.
So this is something that's really it's an international organization that has a measurable benefit.
Right. Right, and you look at the current Ukrainian situation. United Way is in several of the countries surrounding Ukraine, and has 3 different, 2 United Ways and 1 affiliated nonprofit that United Way is going to feed millions of dollars in aid to that are donated here in the United States and in other countries around the world.
So how does that help here in the Yuba-Sutter area? What are you able to do?
Well, I think one thing people need to realize is that all the United Ways are independent. We put together our organizations to match the needs of a community and not overlap with other organizations already doing the same thing. What United Way does, of course, it gives us a brand that is well trusted, one of the most trusted brands of nonprofits in the world. It also gives us a lot of training. It's amazing the amount of training we can receive. It also has very high standards for keeping books, making sure the records are straight, doing things in the most upright of manners. And they really do provide a lot of training, and they do provide a lot of oversight in exchange for using that United Way brand. And in California, we have, starting during the pandemic, we have weekly calls on Zoom at 8:30 each Monday with about 30 different United Ways, which is pretty much everybody in the state participating, sharing information and building really a good network of United Ways in the state.
That's great. We're in a building here in Marysville that was, when it was originally constructed, was a Wells Fargo bank building.
Mm-hmm. Still has an ATM
now?
On the side. And of course now it's Fletcher Insurance Services, and that was really a great thing for us because during the pandemic, you're looking for, as I called it, a good way to make lemonade out of a lemon of a circumstance. And we got the opportunity to cut our overhead by about $1,000 a month by being invited to share office space here at Fletcher Insurance. And we don't have the overhead of the rent as much. It's very low. And we don't have any overhead with utilities and any other overhead costs. So basically, it's been a 100% great situation, and we thank Randy Fletcher for extending that.
So here we see some interesting historical artifacts. There's a wagon over there. What do you know about the artifacts?
Well, I don't
that we
know
see
too
here?
much. I guess you can read the sign.
Yeah, well, there's a railroad depot wagon that we have some stuff sitting on over here that I probably can manage to
Yeah.
widen out and show somebody what's on it here. This is a railroad wagon. Let me see if we can, there we go.
And they actually do use it once in a while in a parade or something, so it's actually still used. And of course, the buggy that's also here in the lobby is historical, and it basically is sitting here and not used. Doesn't have the wherewithal to withstand use, but it's beautiful the way that it was taken
Surrey
up.
with a fringe on top, and I believe it came from one of the ranches here, if I am not mistaken.
Right, and it's part of one of the historic societies and basically being stored here.
If you are watching Lunch with Langdell right now, do us a favor if you would. Would you share this around? One of the things that we try to do is share it to places that are the local events and what have you, but share it with your friends if you would, please, because there's some cool stuff that we'll be talking about further, because there are some events coming up. But one of the things that we wanted to find out was, and we'll get the camera panned back over to get Bob's shot lined up again. All of this electronic stuff that we can fiddle around with these days, just to give you an idea, this is all being done on an iPad, and we have remotely controlled stuff that we can punch buttons on. And I can zoom in on Bob and frame him right up. And there we go, except
For
I
better
can
or
go
for
too
worse.
far if I'm not
Takes me
not
back
careful
to
with
my days in the mid 80s when I did a weekly television show for Easter seals. I was the president of the local Easter Seals Society when we had a local society before it merged with the Sacramento region.
So how did you get to Yuba-Sutter?
Well, I'm one of these people who at a very young age, probably like yourself, at about age 10, I determined that I wanted to be in news.
Okay.
I also wanted to be in radio. So that took me into radio news and also wanting to own a radio station, which, as we know, isn't the most profitable or highest income. I've lost many millions of dollars of opportunity, I'm sure, over the years. But basically at age 10, that's what I wanted to do. I remember coming home and actually laying on the large front lawn at our home in the Bay Area and reading the newspaper every day. Now, for a 10-year-old to spread the afternoon paper out on the lawn and read it is pretty unusual. And I was listening to some of the talk shows you might remember on KGO, Ira Blue,
Right.
and some of the others in the Bay Area. I would listen to those going to sleep at night. And so basically it was an opportunity for me to really love it. My parents both were in journalism. They had journalism degrees from the University of Missouri, which I ended up attending the University of Missouri as well.
That's Springfield or Columbia?
It's the main Columbia,
Okay.
Missouri, and it's one of the top journalism schools still today, of course, in the United States, and had a great time there. And you get to learn television as well as newspaper and magazine. I didn't really get into the magazine, but newspaper, television, and radio, and I spent most of my time radio. I remember one summer doing every morning. They were an NPR affiliate, 100,000 watts, covering a wide swath of Missouri, doing the morning news, which was basically a 2-hour program. One of the funny things, the manager of the station, one of the employees, of course, of the university, and I still to this day remember it because, is it Moscow or Moscow? And it's amazing how different people pronounce it different ways. How do you pronounce it, Ted?
Depends on the city I'm trying to talk about, whether I'm in Russia or Idaho.
We're talking about
And
Russia.
I think there's a couple of other places that
Yeah.
spelled
So anyway,
same
I was
way.
on the air and did a newscast, and immediately when the newscast ended at 10 minutes after 6 a.m., the manager calls and said, "Bob, there's no cow in Moscow." So every time I hear somebody say Moscow, I say there's no cow in Moscow.
Okay. So you ended up in this particular area because of, in part, your dad.
Well, I went
And-
to Utah and was there for a couple of years running a small radio station on behalf of the owner who was in St. George. He bought a station in Delta, Utah, which I
Been
took
there?
over management of there on Highway 50, and
Yep.
lots of blowing sand, and it can be very miserable, and certainly a kind of a wide open space. But it was a good chance to put into some of the things that I'd learned. We actually, my wife and I went around the country in the West and Southwest, and I had 6 job offers. And this one probably wasn't the most profitable, but it felt the most right. And so I took that, was there for a couple of years, and we actually had something that we're very familiar with in our area, which is wildfires. We had an incredible wildfire that in 2 days took in tens of thousands of acres with the blowing winds, as you're very familiar with in Utah. The winds can be very, very fierce. And it just stopped just short of a small town. It would have taken out the entire town, much like Paradise, only this town only had about 500 people in it. But it gave us an opportunity to do around-the-clock live coverage on a small station with basically 3 people involved.
Now,
And
that
of
kind
course,
prepared you for
you
some
were
things
very
later.
involved with the floods in 86 and 97 here
And
on
the fire
on
that followed
KUBA.
in '97 up in the foothills.
Right.
And then 2001, I think we were still doing
Yeah.
some coverage.
So basically, in August of 1981, I left Utah and came back to California, and I was actually recuperating from hepatitis at the time. And they didn't know actually I had hepatitis until I got back to California. I'd been on another medication which kind of masks the hepatitis. When they took me off that medication, all of a sudden the hepatitis. So I was in quarantine for several months until I was totally clear of that. And we were looking for a station to buy in California, and we were down to Ukiah or Yuba City. And we wanted a station in a community where we could make a difference and also make money, obviously. And we saw the future of the Yuba City area far better as far as the population potential and growth And, as far as current population, Yuba City back then was, 10 or 12,000 people officially before it grew and also expanded in population in our area. So it was a pretty small town, but we obviously made the right decision, and that's the kind of radio operation I wanted to run, is one that really helped nonprofit organizations, helped the people, delivered news, and as you'll remember, we had at one time 4 full-time journalists, which is unheard of. And today it's
Our local
it's
newspaper
totally,
has 4 people working for it in
yeah,
the news end
and
of
the
things.
newspaper back then, and actually
Had
until
7 or 8.
2012, had about 8 writers, but they had
Several
like-
photographers. They had a
they had
photo
over 2
editor.
dozen people in the newsroom overall. But journalism has changed substantially, and I enjoyed the years where we were able to do radio the way I enjoyed doing it, and I got out of the business in 2010.
Wow. That is a long time ago, 12 years.
Yeah.
So
I'm still the landlord for the radio operation, and it's still the lead radio operation with 3 stations coming out of that building, and then they also have a Hispanic station.
Punjabi station on 1450 is on one of the towers.
Oh yes,
It
yeah,
used
it
to be
is. You're
Kobo.
right. It's the Punjabi station.
Well, it still is Kobo, but
Right. Yeah, it's coming off of one of our towers, which I never know because KUBA is 5,000 watts, and that one is 1,000 watts night and 500 watts day, which is crazy the way that license reads.
I understand that what happened is somebody who was supposed to be filing when there was an opportunity for them to go from like 500 watts day to 1,000 watts day and 1,000 watts night, they missed the window on the daytime side,
Yeah.
and so ended up being at a lower wattage, lower output during
Right.
the daytime, significantly so.
So
during the
basically,
night.
there's 4 stations coming out of that one building. One is just a signal, though, and the station comes from another location.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to point out about Columbia, Missouri, something that you may not have thought to mention, and that is that the television station, the NBC affiliate in Columbia, is the university station.
Mhm.
And it's only one of 2 commercial operations, at least it was, until WNDU at Notre Dame University in South Bend was sold
Right.
by the university to a commercial enterprise.
Yeah, that
and
was
I
a
think it's
big,
changed houses a
big
few
selling
times.
point, and they've been NBC, then they switched to ABC, now they're back to NBC. And it was a fantastic news department, and of course, when you have professionals, plus you have dozens of journalism students, you've got a pretty good coverage of what's going on in the news in a community. And I spent a summer there, probably 2.5 months, and that was a very interesting experience. We had one time where we were out doing a story on the changing laws on billboards, and they made it so that billboards had to be set way off the road and not near the road in Missouri. And so we were out doing a story on the side of the road on Interstate 70. And the fellow that was with us, he said, "Okay, watch what happens when I switch the camera around and point it at the cars. They're going to start slowing down," thinking that we're radar or something. And sure enough, that was funny that occurred.
Well, my mom and I had an opportunity to visit Columbia, and I've stopped in there since. We were coming back from picking up some equipment that I acquired in Columbus, Ohio, and drove it back. We flew there, drove it back, and stopped in Columbia to donate my grandfather's, her father's, sheepskin, literal sheepskin diploma from the law school there.
Oh, yes.
And
Good
the law
law
school,
school.
the law school was a very large building at one time that had a fire, and so anything beyond 1880 something was lost. And so we spent probably a couple hours at a table with the dean of the law school and somebody else from there, talking about what materials my mom was planning to donate, including this literal sheepskin that was in a tin can about yay so big, about this big, and about yay so long.
Right.
And I need to go back through that videotape and kind of give them a rundown of what that was. But it's funny because we happened to be coming from Columbia, Missouri, or coming from Columbus, and ended up trying to get rooms at a Drury Inn on the west side of town when the Mizzou-Nebraska game was about to take place.
Football is big.
And so they said initially, oh, well, we can put you up for the night here into Friday, but we can't do it on Saturday. And but they managed to find a way. And the funny thing was, coming back on, I think, my last trip across the country in 2018, I stopped at the same place, and there was a very large remote truck parked in the driveway or in the parking lot there. So chatted with some of the people that were dealing with that, and they told me what they were doing. I think they were just kind of biding time for a couple of days rather than go somewhere and have to park a little longer.
Yeah.
But interesting that got you to here. But your dad had an influence on what you were interested in, I'm sure.
Yeah, just to go for the long term, both of my parents graduated from the University of Missouri School of Journalism in 1939. And it was interesting, he said the main reason they wanted to move out to California, he had done a summer stint at Lassen National Park and really enjoyed what he saw of California. But he wanted to escape racism, which was still, this is 1939, which was still a factor in even a state that was not an official part of the South, but bordered the South. And so that was one of the reasons that they came out here. And then, of course, he was able to get a job in, I think it was in 1939 at Batten, Barton, Durstein, and Osborne, which remains one of, BBD&O, and they remain one of the biggest advertising firms. And then he went into World War II, and that's a whole nother hour story of what he went through in the Aleutian Islands, trading with the Russians vodka for food. They'd give the Russians food on these freighters, and they'd get vodka.
That's pretty crazy.
There's some great stories.
You have a Russian story.
He was at the War Information Office in Boulder, Colorado, working there, and then he went to Harvard University to learn Japanese, and he was scheduled to be on Operation Olympic, which was the invasion of Japan. And obviously I'm here today partly because he didn't have to go through that, because it didn't happen.
Well, I think we all have some sort of parents in the military or dad in the military story.
So he remained in journalism until the early 60s, at which time he took on presidency of several different businesses, was assistant to the dean at the business school starting in 1963 at Stanford. But we just had a real love for journalism in our family.
Well, and you've told me some stories about some of the advertising clients that he worked with, Ham's Beer and some other things.
Yeah, Burgermeister, Bergie.
How did that affect your thinking and doing?
Well, it was just part of the overall equation. He had at one time, he was part of the reason that the Giants came to San Francisco. His organization worked both with the Angels and the Giants to get them established in Northern and Southern California, because
Now, the
all
Angels
of,
came from where?
I'm not sure that do the Angels come from anywhere? That might have been a startup. I'm hazy on that right now, which when you get to be almost 69, you're hazy on a lot of things. But he was able to obtain all of the advertisers for both the radio and the TV broadcast for both of them, and that allowed the Giants. Part of the reason they were able to come to San Francisco is because they had that money coming in from broadcast rights that they needed to help the team. So that was interesting. He did that obviously for several years, and I remember actually after he left what was in the mid-50s, started a firm that he was a partner in, left BBD&O, Harris, Harlan, and Wood, and but he knew Russ Hodges and Lon Simmons, and of course Lon Simmons had his start in Fresno and Yuba City. He
Yep.
was here at KUBA for a couple of years in the 1950s doing Yuba College sports and other broadcasting for KUBA. So that was kind of interesting, and one of the greats in baseball and football announcing. So basically that got the Giants there, and I remember we were at the game, nighttime game, that was the world's only fog delay. And the game was, in 1964, was delayed because of fog for like an hour. The fog was so thick, we were sitting down the first baseline, and we went up to the broadcast booth and got to sit in the broadcast booth with Russ Hodges and Lon Simmons while they talked about the fog delay and just bantered back and forth about the Giants and other sports things. So that was certainly a highlight that I remember from my youth. So all these things enter into your love of broadcasting.
And your love of baseball.
Not so much anymore.
Okay. Well, I remember you being a big baseball
I remember,
fan at one
yeah, I
time.
remember back when Willie Mays was the first $100,000 a year baseball player, and I think it was 1966. $100,000 a year. When baseball players were making 30, 40,000 at best, he all of a sudden was, and now, some of them are making tens of millions a year.
Yeah. Crazy amounts of money that they're able to
Yeah.
earn these days. Disproportionate to what many people who would participate in the sport at a local level or otherwise. But speaking of local things, you have got a lot on your table there. Let's kind of see what the table looks like there. So tell us a little bit about what you have going on that table right there.
Well, first of all, United Way is here to be of assistance to those in need. We have 27 organizations that we work with in our community. 27 that handle an estimated 15,500 unique individuals each month. Now, some of those unique individuals go to more than one of these agencies, but it really gives us an incredible opportunity to see the fantastic help that is available in our community. And of course, one of the things that we do is we receive about 500 calls a year at our office, people looking for information about where can I get food, where can I get assistance with homelessness, where can I get assistance with rent, where can I get assistance with utilities, where can I get assistance with job training, the questions go on and on. And it allows us, of course, to refer people to those organizations that we work with in the community. And of course, you name an area and I can tell you how we tie in. One of the biggest things that we've been involved with is making sure that the community is fed. And this is a huge problem, obviously, and always has been. We just put out a statewide report last year based on 2019 numbers, so this is before the pandemic. 30% of our residents of Yuba and Sutter County don't have enough income to make ends meet each month. We know that about 60% of people, and this is confirmed by other studies, live paycheck to paycheck. And one thing that we have been very concerned about is so many people are living in such a manner they don't get a proper diet. They're not getting all the food groups. They're not eating low fat, low sodium. They're being forced to eat things that are higher in fat, higher in sodium, higher in sugar.
Or carbohydrates.
Yeah, and we have 20 food pantries in our area, including the Yuba-Sutter Food Bank, which is a tremendous organization now. It started literally with the new management, Michelle Downing, and her board of directors at the beginning of the pandemic.
And this is basically taking over what was widely known as the Yuba-Sutter Senior Gleaners, I think.
Yeah, that's how it started out, and it became the food bank, and she really took it to the next level quickly. And one of the things that we did, along with several other organizations, and it was just amazing. We had a meeting on a Wednesday where I told Virgil Atkinson of Salove, I told him, I said, not Virgil Atkins, Just Serve. Salove is one of the organizations that he brought into the fold. But we had, literally the next day, we had a meeting at Hilber's with about 10 people in the room talking about what we could do to raise money. The next Monday evening, we had a meeting at the Government Center with about 30 people there talking about this issue. And immediately we got a $10,000 check from Yuba County, and soon after got another $10,000 from Sutter County, and went on in basically a year's period to raise $200,000, of which $40,000 was from United Way worldwide, $200,000 and 150,000 or more pounds of food to help our local food pantries and the food bank. They saw a tremendous increase in demand during that period. And so it was really eye-opening to see all these organizations coming together to make things happen so quickly. It was just incredible. And so we were really pleased to be a part of that whole process, and it all came from me calling one person saying we really need to do something, and the next day it was on the way, and the next week it was launched.
Is that an example of the kinds of things that happen in Yuba-Sutter, maybe that people don't necessarily know about?
Well, recently with the power outage of 3 weeks up in the foothills, especially Nevada County, I was brought into the fold on a Zoom call, and it's all started with the principal of that small school up, and I'm forgetting the name. It wasn't Challenge, it was one of the other.
Yuba-Feather and Challenge, Dobbins?
Might have been in Dobbins. Anyway,
okay.
What small school up there, saying we really need help up there. So we had, this was in the second week of the outage, and we had this call, and literally that day we had firewood for the residents. We were able to get the gasoline station opened within a day or two. We were able to, with providing backup power, we were able to bring more food and water into the community. We were able to have people shoveling driveways. All that from one telephone call. And that really shows the power of people working together, both nonprofit and governmental agencies. Yuba County was incredible, the part they played in it. And I'm sorry that we didn't have that call a week earlier for those people. That was really a tough situation. But it shows how people want to help in our community when there's a big need.
And I see that you've got in your, right there on the table that we can take a look at, a number of things that show how the community is cooperating. And you can go ahead and point over at the camera over there.
Well, this here is an event we've done for many years called the Community Resource Fair, and that's coming up again this year on May
If you hold it up a little bit.
On
there
May
we go.
the cover my face on May the 21st, and it's going to be at Sam Brannan Park where we had it last year. We didn't have it the year before because of COVID, and we moved from Gaucher Park to Sam Brannan because, number one, it's much bigger. We could spread out and not worry about COVID. And we had expecting about 70 organizations. 70 had signed up, and we had 60. And these are nonprofit and governmental organizations from our community that are there to meet with people who have various different types of needs. And also, it's a great opportunity for them to network with each other. The city of Yuba City was tremendous, as they are again this year, in assisting, and as they have been for many years, for this event and our big run we do every Halloween.
So this is going to run from 10 o'clock to?
From 10 to 1 on Saturday, May 21st. Costs nothing for nonprofit and governmental organizations to be a part of. It costs nothing for people to come to, and there's a free lunch for everybody who attends and everybody that exhibits. And we're also associated with an organization that has the walk and roll for disability awareness. Family Soup is now overseeing that, and that brings out about 200 people just with that one thing, and they're going to walk around the track at Gray Avenue and then come over to the Sam Brannan. So we're looking forward to another great day with a free barbecue lunch, lots of information to be shared about low-cost and no-cost services.
And I stopped by there to go talk to Tom Walther about something else.
Oh, that's right.
Towards the tail end of that, and there was quite a lot of people there. It looked like it was a very busy and well-received event, even though you had changed the location and
changed the date, changed the location, and COVID was hanging over our heads. Turned out to be in August an 85-degree day, which is unheard of, with a light wind, which is unheard of, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. So it's back in its normal spot this year.
So back at Gaucher Park, or it's at Brannan?
I'm at normal spot on the calendar,
oh, okay.
which is the third weekend in May. But yes, we will be at Sam Brannan Park again this year.
So what else do you have there?
Well, one of the other things as far as a fundraiser, and this is something that for all of the nonprofit organizations that do fundraising pretty much stopped during the pandemic, and we were able to do a lot of other things that allowed us to operate with less donations, instead getting grants to help out in various different things. But this is our annual soiree, which is usually kind of a formal dress-up thing for the past 20 plus years. And we have not been able to do it the last 2 years. We had an online auction last year, but this year we're back to reality with our presenting sponsor at Hard Rock. And we've changed it to the Blue Jeans Country Soiree. come as you are. Don't have to dress up, although some people will put on their country finest. That'll be exciting to see. And we're just getting tremendous cooperation from Hard Rock, as well as many other organizations that are sponsoring. And the country band is one that's well known. It appears quite a Slaughterhouse Road, which appears all over the place in Northern California. They're going to be our band for the night. And we want to have a celebration kind of experience. So lots of neat things going on, and good opportunity to celebrate as we move from the pandemic to, keep your fingers crossed, the endemic, which appears to be the case.
So what else is going on?
Well, we provide a lot of other services as well, and one of them, we have information on how to connect to broadband internet at a very low cost, and this is something that United Ways of California is involved with, and it's something that is part of the rules of operation for internet firms in California. They have to have a low-cost thing for people who qualify. So we help let them know about that and help them connect to these low-cost services. And that's one thing I'm really glad to see, the money coming in from the state and federal sources both to expand our broadband. Yuba and Sutter County both now, especially I think Yuba County, have really come up with great plans to expand broadband to areas that aren't receiving it in the foothills especially. That's why I say Yuba County, because of the large number of people and percentage-wise that don't have reliable service where they live.
So that's one of many things that the United Way is doing and that you're involved in.
Right. We just, yesterday, we helped dole out $400,000 in aid to food and shelter organizations, a number of food pantries and the food bank, and Casa de Esperanza, Salvation Army, and other organizations that are helping provide food and shelter and utility coverage and rent coverage. So we contract with FEMA and have been doing this for many years to oversee that program for our area. And between the American Recovery Act from last year and normal funding from Congress, we were able to dole out for this year $400,000 into our community. So that's something we're very involved with.
That's a lot of change.
Yeah.
And how does that change things in Yuba-Sutter?
Well, I have to say we have very well organized food pantries and food banks, and they've become more so over the years, as we've already described. But you know, the real interesting thing is during the pandemic, the demand for food from the food pantries and food bank actually dropped during the second year of the pandemic, because the amount of money that was going to families from the federal government primarily, and especially money for families with children, so they're able to more buy their own food. Some of that's going away. I think the aid to children, families with children, is coming back again or staying. But we see the need is going to go up sharply because of the, obviously, look what gasoline is doing. Heard a report through the Wall Street Journal this morning that we're looking at gasoline prices of perhaps $6.30 on average in California this summer. We'll see if that is that bad, but right now it's $5.57 or something in California. Food is the same way. The grocery store food is getting so expensive, getting out of range. And so, again, this is something that we're right on top of in a lot of different ways. And
Where you talk about the cost of fuel, that has a direct effect on the cost of food
That's
because
incredible.
the food that arrives at the grocery store comes
Came
by
from
truck.
somewhere. Yep.
So, anything that we have left out, or that you think we ought
Well,
to know about?
I've got 5 pages of information here. We could talk for another 3 hours. But
well, we'll just have you back again. Just
Yeah,
make sure
yeah.
that we can
But
do that.
it's really interesting, the different things. We also have prescription cards that we hand out, giving people a discount on their prescription if it's prescription that your insurance plan doesn't cover, or many times it covers it, but it's very expensive and it's cheaper to use a prescription card. One thing we did during the pandemic is Yuba County received federal funds, and we helped them keep a lot of nonprofits alive by nonprofits coming to us to apply for aid, pretty much up to $10,000 each. And we were able to give out $400,000 in a 3-month period to local nonprofits. And it really did a lot to keep them alive at the end of 2020. So that was very big. We could talk a lot about the future and looking at bringing 211 into our area, also something called VOAD, which is a volunteer organization that very much is like what we just went through with the situation of the major power outage in the foothills. So I'm having my first conversations with Yuba County, and Randy Fletcher is on board, as well as the Yuba County Emergency Operations Manager, and we're going to start the ball rolling to put together a bi-county organization of government and nonprofits to basically, in an emergency, who's going to do what, so that we don't have to guess at what nonprofits can do different things. And one of the things that we saw, and you saw very clearly in the flood of '86 and '97 and the foothill fires, we have situations where people in the community want to give, and what is given is stuff that may not be needed. And not only that, but if stuff is needed, several different organizations are gathering that stuff, and they have too much of this or too much of that, and a lot of wasted energy going on. Whereas we saw from that phone call that was made that I just told you about, we have an opportunity to have different organizations providing different services on a very quick basis. Literally
and
overnight.
So this means that you can coordinate what's going on much better.
Yeah, and the idea also is to have a warehouse to have socks, other underwear, food, anything they might need immediately following an emergency, and have it in a place where it's not in a flood or fire situation. And we understand that there's probably government funding available for such an animal.
This is quite different for you in some ways than being in the broadcasting business or being in news.
It's all about helping people.
So how long do you think you're going to keep doing this?
I don't know. As long as I physically can do it is probably the best answer.
Well, good. Well, we have been talking with Bob Harlan. Bob is the executive director of the Yuba-Sutter-Colusa United Way, which has a number of events going on. Bob, if people want to get a hold of you, how is the easiest thing for them and for you?
We have a direct way on the internet at yscunitedway.org, or just type in Google Yuba-Sutter-Colusa United Way, or Yuba-Sutter-Colusa United Way or something, it'll come up with a link to our website, and you can send us information there. Or you can give us a call. Our number is easy to find, 530-743-1847. I'm sure everybody watching has got a pencil right now, but it's an easy number to find. And we're here 5 days a week from 8:30 until 4, and certainly are willing to answer a myriad of different concerns and questions that they have.
Great. And let's take a quick look here in just a minute if I can push the right buttons, see if we can rehearse what we're doing here. Push that, and then I can tell you that coming up in March, we have Crystal Martin next week talking about what's going on Plumas Street. And then we'll be back over on this side of the river at what used to be the Marysville Youth and Civic Center. It's now called the Tri-County Community Center on 18th and B Streets, basically in Marysville. And we will be doing those shows again at noon Wednesday right here on Lunch with Langdell.
Thank you, Ted.
You're quite welcome, Bob. We get a little fuel for some of the things that we're doing from these fine folks. These fine folks, Bridge Coffee Company, they roast the coffee in Marysville, they distribute it directly to you if you live here in the Yuba-Sutter area. In fact, I got some dropped off at my house yesterday, so I now have more coffee beans to grind. And they also serve it freshly brewed at Bridge Coffee Company over on Clark Avenue in Yuba City. And we thank Bob Harlan, who is just now making his exit. There goes Bob. And we are here on camera 3. We're in case you were wondering where we were, we're in the what used to be the Wells Fargo Bank building, and we talked a little bit about that. It has historic pictures, it has historic wagons and that sort of thing, and it also has the Yuba-Sutter United Way and Fletcher Insurance. So we hope that you will join us next week right here on Lunch with Langdell, and that you can do that quite easily. And again, we will be talking with Crystal Martin from the Yuba City Downtown Business Association, and you should be able to enjoy all of that right here, noon Wednesday, right here on Lunch with Langdell.